Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2021-2022 Super App launch. This session that you're watching will support planning for the specialized support and direct service needs of students with disabilities within the Super App. Before we dive deep into this portion of the Super App, I'd like to take some time to reorient and review the timeline for the 2021-2022 Super App. Today, we are releasing resources and the Super App to school systems November 6, 2020. Moving forward, the Super App should be completed in its entirety to the department by February 5th, 2021. Throughout this time period, we will be hosting calls with school systems to support you in the completion of your Super App. In March 2021, throughout the month, the department will be reviewing school plans and providing feedback to each of you to ensure that you meet all of the approval and funding requirements to receive funding that will then go to Bessie in April 20th, 2021 for approval. Resources for completing the Super App and all launch materials can be found in our school improvement library, and I encourage you to visit this link to see the suite of resources that the department is providing to support school systems in the completion and the successful approval of their Super App. Today's session, school system leaders will have two main objectives. One, understand how the Partnerships for Success Guide can be used to support students with disabilities in school system planning. And two, learn how to use this guide during the school system planning process. So let's get started. First, I will ground you in understanding the strategy behind Partnerships for Success and how it can be used to support students with disabilities. To support students with disabilities in engaging in high quality instruction, the department implements a framework focused on four key proven strategies. One focuses on the early and accurate identification of students with disabilities. The second focuses on providing high quality instruction. The third is focused on specialized supports and related services. And the fourth is coordinated and effective transition. To strengthen this framework, the department and school systems have adopted high-quality curriculum, aligned training and support, and partnered with organizations to establish a positive school culture. However, in addition to all of these resources to support students with disabilities in experiencing unique challenges, they must be addressed to ensure that they too are provided the opportunity to engage with high-quality instruction every single day. The unique challenges that students with disabilities face can often be supported by equipping educators with specialized supports and ensuring students with disabilities have access to related service providers. For that reason, the department has built the Partnerships for Success Guide that facilitates partnerships between school systems and organizations that can equip educators with tools and strategies in key areas of specialized supports and provide an informal list of organizations that can provide related services to students with disabilities. Specialized supports are areas of need that cross-cut all subject areas and all settings, and therefore cannot be supported by professional development focused on the implementation of curriculum. These areas of support also cross-cut many disabilities. We believe that by utilizing broad areas of specialized supports rather than disability-specific professional development, school systems will be able to more effectively plan and support more students. Additional information regarding the areas of specialized support can be found in the Partnerships for Success Guide. It is also important to add that these areas of need are deeply supported by data. According to data review, it was found that over 60% of IEPs in Louisiana identified one or more areas of specialized support necessary to ensure students with disabilities could successfully engage in high quality instruction. However, in contrast, over 80% of special education leaders cited a need for additional professional development that focused on specialized support. We believe that the Partnerships for Success Guide will facilitate relationships between district leaders and organizations providing this type of support and assist educators in ensuring students with disabilities are able to meaningfully engage in high quality instruction every single day. In addition to educators providing high quality instruction and specialized supports, Many students with disabilities also require services from other professionals, often referred to as related services, to implement their individualized education plan. Over time, many school systems have expressed significant challenges to ensuring they are able to provide adequate providers to conduct evaluations and/or therapeutic services. By building a list of organizations that can provide services utilizing innovative methods, we are able to address these acute needs directly. How can the Partnerships for Success Guide be used in the school system planning process? Again, our framework for supporting students with disabilities focuses around 4 key strategies. Today, we will spend our time discussing the specialized supports and related services component of this framework. We know that students with disabilities have their specialized support and related service needs met when students are able to engage in high quality instruction every day. This is a key indicator of high quality educational program that will improve outcomes for students with disabilities. To guide school systems in planning for the needs, the Super App includes an indicator along with application questions. We'll now discuss how to select the right supports and how to budget for this work. Because the nature of specialized supports and related services are distinct, we will discuss the planning process for both of those separately. So first we will visit indicator SDN 5.1. This indicator is that students access specialized supports and related services that allow them the access to high quality curriculum. The application question will cite which partner will train teachers on the use of specialized supports for students with disabilities. It's important to note that the school system framework does not include a question for related service needs of students with disabilities. Those needs should be addressed within a school system's formula IDEA budget. Using the areas of specialized supports, we will first discuss planning and budgeting for equipping educators with specialized supports. The first step to ensuring students with disabilities have the specialized supports necessary to engage in high quality instruction every day, we must identify what areas of support are most critical to ensuring access to instruction. When we think about specialized support needs of students with disabilities, we can often think of these needs as barriers. What are the unique challenges that often get in the way of students fully engaging in high quality instruction? It may be their inability to effectively communicate with educators and peers. For example, you might have one student that struggles with the oral motor skills necessary to make sound, or you might have a student that only repeats words spoken by others. While the disability classification of these 2 students might be vastly different, they would both need educators equipped with specialized supports in the area of communication. Additional thoughts and considerations to make. Specialized support should be based on academic and functional needs. It should increase meaningful engagement with peers and educators, and it should also increase access to high quality instruction. How can we identify the top areas of specialized support to provide training to educators? 1, begin by looking at the schools in your school system that are identified as in urgent need of intervention for students with disabilities, specifically UIRA SWD school sites. Within these school sites, it can be assumed that high quality instruction is happening. The question then becomes, what is the barrier to access for students with disabilities within these specific school sites? Specific factors to look at. 1, what related services are students receiving? If students are receiving lots of speech therapy, one might assume there might be some communication challenges that educators will need support in supporting students. Or another example would be if there's many students receiving OT services, there might need to be some support for functional skill building in school. What educational needs are indicated across student IEPs? Are there patterns of educational needs being noticed across IEPs in the school site? Gather feedback from the educators that are supporting these students. Talk to classroom teachers about the barriers that they're seeing for many students in accessing the instruction that they're delivering every single day, and what are the pieces that could help these children to be successful in those environments. And lastly, take the findings from these 2 questions and then step back and look at other school sites in your school system and see if these trends are consistent. Next, you would refer to the Partnerships for Success Guide. After having identified areas of specialized support, on page 4 of the Partnerships for Success Vendor Guide, there are categories of specialized support identified there that are crosswalked to the vendor that can provide training around those key areas. For example, if you had many students with that presented communication needs, you would want to go with a vendor that was checked off in this matrix. Maybe you identified two areas, one around sensory environment and one around executive functioning. You would want to look for a vendor that had check marks on both of these areas, knowing that they could provide training to educators to support both areas. After identifying a vendor, you would look at their vendor page to identify the menu of services that they offer, and then connect with the vendor to build out customized support for your educators as they try to address the unique needs of students with disabilities in your school system. Once you've identified an area of specialized support and identified an organization that can support you in that, the next piece of this is budgeting those partnerships. The first thing you would do is take the 3 areas of specialized support and rank them in area from highest to lowest. Then identify the vendor that would be providing that name, that would be providing that support, and then budget your state or federal formula dollars to support the work. One example is presented here. This is a sample budget that would provide 2 days of professional development in communication, 1 day of sensory environment, and 1 day of training for the implementation of assistive technology for up to 30 educators by the same vendor. The majority of this cost will be paid for under the Diverse Needs IDEA budget. As you can see, they're pulling some federal formula dollars. So this is a school system that picked one vendor with 3 different areas of specialized support. A second example could look like this. This is a sample budget utilizing 3 different vendors, providing 2 days of professional development for executive functioning, 1 day of leadership training for the implementation of assistive technology, and 1 day of training to support the communication needs of students with disabilities. Again, you can see the cost for this is completely budgeted under the Diverse Needs tab IDEA budget. So this is a school system that picked 3 different vendors and 3 different priority areas. And these vendors are typically experts in these specific areas. Once you've budgeted federal and state dollars, you are then eligible to request competitive funding to support additional capacity building for educators. School systems with at least one school identified as UIR for students with disabilities may request competitive funding to subsidize the cost of professional development from vendors in the Partnerships for Success Guide. This funding is not exclusive to UIR school sites, but can be used to support professional development for educators across the school system. So what this means is having one school site that's UIR students with disabilities unlocks your eligibility for this funding, but you can use this funding to train educators at other schools outside of that UIR designated school site. Funding eligibility. School systems with one school designated as UIR for students with disabilities are eligible to request up to $5,000 to subsidize the cost of specialized support training. This would probably equate to 2 to 3 days of training for up to 30 educators. School systems with 2 or more school sites designated as UIR for students with disabilities are eligible for up to $10,000 in funding to support the specialized support training for educators. And again, this funding can be used across all schools in a school system. This is just the requirements for you to be eligible to receive it. So budgeting Partnerships for Success specialized support. This is a sample budget, again, revisiting the initial one, of a school system that chose one organization to focus on 3 different areas of specialized supports. Notice this school system had only one school labeled for UIR, students with disabilities, so they're eligible to request up to $5,000 to subsidize the funding for training educators across the school system with specialized supports. Looking at the second budget, this was the school system that had chosen 3 different vendors for 3 different priority areas. This school system had more than 2 schools labeled as UIR for students with disabilities. So maybe they had 6 or 10 school sites labeled as UIR A for students with disabilities. This means since they have more than one school labeled as UIR students with disabilities, they could request up to $10,000 funding to subsidize the cost of training educators around areas of specialized support. They chose to split this funding request up across 2 different vendors. They could have just said $10,000 for the top priority. They could have split this across all 3. It doesn't matter, but their maximum request could be $10,000. In addition, outside of the K-12 grade bands, school systems can also identify vendors to train teachers on the use of specialized supports for children ages 3 through 5 in early childhood settings. Lead agencies will again identify the vendor that will train teachers and the area of support that they will train them on. These LEAs, all lead agencies, are eligible to receive up to $3,000 in competitive funding requests to subsidize the cost of this training for students with disabilities. I hope that our time together today has been helpful in helping you to understand the Students with Diverse Needs domain framework, as well as understanding how to use the Partnerships for Success guide to support building the capacity of educators in delivering specialized supports for students with disabilities. Some additional resources that might be helpful to you as you plan is our Partnerships for Success guide, which gives the overview of the vendors that you are eligible to receive competitive funds to use. The second is our Strategies for Success, a guidebook for supporting students with disabilities. This is the framework from which we ground all of our efforts to support improving outcomes for students with disabilities. Thirdly, we have our Louisiana Believes Students with Disabilities Resource Library. We have our Louisiana PD Vendor Guide. And lastly, our School System Support Toolbox. These are the specific resources that can help you with planning for students with disabilities within the Super App. Additionally, larger Super App support can be found in other locations. This slide contains Super App support information. All Super App launch presentations and recordings can be accessed via our School Improvement Library, linked on this slide. Please note during November, December, and January, regularly scheduled team calls and office hours will provide opportunities for school system leaders to learn more about specific sessions, ask questions, and receive guidance. New this year, the department will offer Super App planning support calls beginning in December, where teams can request one-on-one targeted guidance and support with planning, completing the workbook, and aligning funding to priorities. Please reach out to ldoe.grantshelpdesk@la.gov if you have any questions. Thank you for joining me here today, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.